Abe, good to have you on the podcast, man.
Brian, thank you so much for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, I'm glad to catch up again. I know I was on your podcast a while ago, and it's fun. It's these interesting things that have happened because of this podcast. Is like random meet. I can't even remember how you and I met a year or two ago, but just kind of the random meetings. Now we comment back and forth on LinkedIn, and you're in a whole other country, so it's like just fun to kind of keep up with people that you've met randomly and serendipitously. So
Totally agree. That's the power of podcasting, right? Like you meet
yeah.
people across the continents, across the oceans, and you have fun conversation and insightful conversation. So
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you on here. Let's start off. I'm kind of curious, like we haven't caught up in a while. What are you working on now? Like what are you excited about? What's going on in your world?
I'm excited about the future. Looking how things evolve technology-wise with all the large language model throwing out new features, new products, and so on. I'm excited to see where it goes, even that most people are afraid. I'm a tech person at heart, and I
Hmm.
love playing with these tools to see how I can integrate them in my business, how I can help clients be more efficient with them. So I'm basically playing a lot these days, using these tools, try to see how I can streamline my business, as I mentioned, streamline my client's business, and finding ways to actually make these tools useful, not just having a chat buddy that I talk to every single day,
Yeah.
but more of a process in place that helps business grow.
Are you building these specifically for your business, like personally, or for like your clients as well?
Both. So the approach that I have is try to look at the processes that I have in place in my business first to see if there are things that can be optimized or automated and so on. And then as problems or challenges come from my client side, I see if there is a way I can implement the tools in their business as
Hmm.
well. So basically looking from both lenses and see where these things can be implemented, not just from a content creation perspective, which most people use, but as well from sometimes even unlimited access to my brain. Let's say if someone comes to me and is like, oh, I wish I could ask these questions last night when I was like struggling with this. But if you train an AI model on your knowledge, basically you can give that to your clients and they can ask questions any time on the moment. Of course, it's not 100% the same, but still they can give you, they can get an answer that help them overcome a certain challenge at that particular moment.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, because you don't, I mean, it's nice to have you there personally in diagnosing, but again, if you can train it on a lot of your insight, right, it's almost like you're there, at least in some regard, for a quick answer. So I mean, it's something I've thought about even with my coaching is like, how do I give that to clients where they kind of feel like, yeah, there's a pseudo Brian here, when I'm sleeping or not. Yeah. I like that. We'll get into that a little bit more. I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole with that because I know we probably could spend the whole time literally just talking about that. All right, we have a new tradition that we're starting on the podcast. So we're doing some rapid fire here, and the whole point of this is I really want some insight, quick thought. You can go deeper in a story if you want, but we don't know what these questions are. So I have my little jar here. Are you excited?
Oh yeah, excited
Okay,
and afraid.
let's
Or
see
how's
what
that
comes up.
show?
I
Naked
can
and afraid. Yeah.
veto them too if I want. I can veto one. But here we go. First question. What's your go-to mantra or reminder when things get hard?
I can get over anything. Because I reinvented myself so many times, and every single time when things got tough, I know that I will find a solution. Even that might take a while, but there is a solution, and I can get over everything.
Has that always been the case, or do you remember a time where you had to like change your thinking to ultimately get to that point?
It wasn't always the case. Like I remember, especially when I was younger, before I was a business owner, when I had a full-time job, and where you were kind of restricted. You're like, this is the set of things that you need to do, and you're not allowed to think outside of the box. So back then, when I was hitting a roadblock, I wasn't able to go past that thing. But when I start building businesses, I figure out that wait a second, there is no problem without solutions. So it was a change of mindset a shift in my mindset. I don't remember if someone ingrained that to me or I learned it by myself, unfortunately, to pay credit to that person.
Mhm.
But yeah, there was definitely a shift at some point. I don't remember exact the moment, but it was probably around 1 or 2 years after I start my first business.
Well, do you think it was just because almost like the handcuffs were taken off because you had to figure it out yourself, right? Or you're not going to survive. At least the corporate side, as we all know, you can sort of make it work even if you're not having your best days. Was that the reason you think?
Possibly, and I love the analogy because indeed it's there are they call golden handcuff for a reason, but also you can call them brain handcuff, like because it gets you stuck in a place in which your creativity is not allowed to thrive, at least in some companies, because the reality is that there are companies out there that encourage creative thinking, creative problem solving, and even have like entire departments that are focusing on solving problems by themselves rather than someone giving them directions and so on. But I think that was the biggest struggle. Like something was like holding you there without giving you the opportunity to like resolve real problems.
Hmm. Okay. All right, here we go. Moving on. These are supposed to be rapid fire, but I'm always going to ask some additional questions if relevant. Here we go. Oh, do you
Bring it on.
plan your year out and or take a different approach to goal setting?
To plan my year.
You plan your year out, or do you have like some other way? Do you plan quarterly? Do you just kind of on the fly? How do you think about goal setting?
So I think I tried only once to make a year resolution and have a yearly goal. I usually love rapid testing period in which I set myself like in the following couple of weeks, I want to achieve this, or in the following couple of months, I want to achieve that, and so on, and what I have to do in order to make it happen. So usually I go from the big goal towards like breaking it down in smaller steps and ensure that I am able to do them. If not, to find the right people to help me with. And that's kind of how I go about it. And when I first started this approach, I was very bad at being realistic with the deadlines and how long things will take. And as I go, I realized that I should maybe plan, let's say, 1 extra week or 2 extra weeks for that particular goal that I want to achieve. So that's how I like iterated. But I love this approach rather than setting year's resolutions or planning 1 year in advance or 10 years in advance. I envision myself years in advance, but from a knowledge perspective rather than setting, let's say, material goals or I don't know, certain amount of money in my account and something like that, but rather what I want to become as a person.
So it's more the simple, I guess, maybe the metaphor or as an analogy. I'm kind of thinking on the fly is like you're not thinking about like getting to the end of the marathon. You're like, hey, if I just get to mile one, let's see where I'm at. And then I can kind of iterate from there. So these rapid kind of sprints, if you will, help you kind of accelerate a little bit quicker. And then you can, almost like, game plan from there for the next mile.
Exactly, because when you do that first mile, the beauty of getting started is the fact that you start to learn and you receive that feedback from both the environment, from yourself. You learn, and you might realize that you can have a different approach. So I love to stay flexible, to have this freedom of flexibility, because I can always pivot if things go off or what I assume is not right and so on. And thanks to that flexibility and learning curve, it's much more easier to pivot like 1 month in than spending, let's say, 2 quarters and you're like, oh no, what I do now? And then the investment fallacy comes in and you're like, I spend so much time, so much money, so much energy in this thing. I won't quit now, even that every single signal tells you something else. And that's why I love it. Apart from the fact that, yeah, you can take it literally like step by step and without being even crushed sometimes by the bigger goal or the bigger,
Mhm.
I don't know, 24 miles or 24 kilometers, how long it's a marathon. But yeah, it's my favorite approach, definitely.
Yeah. No, I love it. It kind of reminds me. I had Anne-Laure Lecomte on, who wrote this book called Tiny Experiments, and kind of how about these growth loops and these feedback loops, and try to tighten those up so that you're always accelerating forward. So I really like that that approach to it. That's solid. Yeah, I think that's good advice for anyone. All right,
Glad you enjoy it. Question number 3.
question number 3. Oh wow! Well, look, this is a good one. I think you were leading into it a little bit. What's your next just get started moment? Anything you are secretly working on?
To reveal my secrets. Oh man, I want to finally start my solo YouTube channel, which I planned for a while. I even announced it in my 100 solo episode in my podcast,
Mhm.
but I didn't follow through. But this time I have a deadline. I want to start in September, so I'm working on that. And that will be my next getting started moment, because it's been a while actually since I start something.
Hmm. What do you think prevented you from starting it before? What roadblock did you hit?
Ah, a physical one. I had an accident this summer, like I broke my
Ah,
ACL and I rehab basically for the whole summer. So that was the major thing, because it shift all my plans. But apart from that, obviously I could find time if I wanted to. I think was all these questions in my head, like what should it be about? And
mm,
then I realized, like, I'm playing with these tools, I'm sharing things online anyway. Why not just go with the flow and see where it goes? And I can pivot at any single moment without needing to, I don't know, start another channel from scratch and so on, like many other people did after they started something, they pivoted and so on.
mhm.
Even my podcast started with a certain name and now it's another name and different direction and so on.
Yeah,
You bring in
yeah,
this new question to your podcast. So pivoting, I think it's part of it. So that was my roadblock, but now finally I overcome it, and I'm like, I'm just starting, and I'm sure if things go in a certain way, I can always pivot.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's the whole point. What I, well, at least I've learned is like the evolution. Like I want to see the evolution of Gabe. I don't need to see the polish, like you got it all figured out. I kind of like the, oh, you had a channel, now you pivoted. Oh, you're doing something different. Okay, cool. Like let's keep working. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's noble actually to like accept that. Um, and almost like take that responsibility on, like, hey, I don't have to know it all, but that's actually going to help other people by
Yeah,
not, thinking I do, right.
yeah, and to reveal a bit more secrets there, basically what I'm trying to do at the beginning, to showcase the fact that certain things obviously I don't know, and I want to for people to see that here where I'm starting with certain things, and after that they'll see the progress, they'll see the evolution, like you said, and it'll be probably much more fun, and people will learn along the way with me.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, I'm excited. I'm going to subscribe once it launches.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, question number 4. What's one thing you had to unlearn to grow? One thing you had to unlearn to grow.
Staying on all the time, like grinding and working hard, is not productivity. You're not productive if you're like spending all day in front of your laptop doing things, and at the end of the day you're like dead and you don't recover and so on. So because when I first started my first online business, everyone was saying like, you need to work hard, you need to, and I came from a background of hardworking people and so on, and was ingrained in me, and was quite hard. It took me more than 10 years to unlearn that, and
Mm,
sometimes it's still there. Like in some days, I find myself late in the evening, still being productive without actually doing much, and yeah, it's a long learning process, and it's still in the making in some parts of my weeks, but luckily now it's here and there only. But that's the biggest thing that, yeah, I pay many years with that.
more just, I guess, giving yourself some grace to take a day off, or to, pop off for a few hours and not feel like you always have to be on working. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is the problem for most people that love what they do, because I have this conversation with a lot of entrepreneurs that are so passionate about their work that you say like, and I was saying the same thing. It doesn't feel like work, and it doesn't feel like work, but it's still your brain is functioning. You give energy and so on. Even that is not at full capacity, your physical body as well. You either stay, I don't know, on your chair or like you're on a standing desk, like I'm staying now, but still it's energy consumed, both mental and physical, and it's catching up with you at some point. So I I don't recommend that to anyone.
Yeah.
Like hustle culture, it's a big problem in my opinion, and not sure when things will change.
Yeah. No, I think that again, it's I think we had that hustle culture for a lot of years, like beyond, always have the phone on. And now I think people are starting to wise up and be like, I can put my phone away. I
Sure.
liken back to like my parents or even grandparents, like they didn't have phones. Like when they left their job, they went home and they never heard from their boss. They never sent any emails. They never did anything until the next morning. And I think there's maybe something we should pull from them, bring back into our lives here, 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. My
Yeah,
wife, the other day when we went for an evening walk, and I was taking my phone with me, I was like, "Why you need it?
yeah,
Like we just go around the block. Like you don't need the phone." I was like, "Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Let's leave the phone at home."
yeah.
And it was different. Like even that, usually when we do these walks, we don't stay on the phone or anything. But if the phone, I don't know, was in your pants, it's like, maybe it's something important, and your mind flies there and so on. So yeah, I think this disconnecting from technology and even having like off days, entire days, like even if you do it in the weekend, it's still fine. But disconnect for a full day and see the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. All right, last question here.
Bring
Question
it
or
on.
rapid fire. What are we going to do? Drum roll? I tell you what, these are somehow aligning. I like this. What's your process for pressure testing an idea before committing?
Nice, nice. So first of all, before testing an idea, I truly need to feel aligned with it, if that makes sense. Like if I don't resonate with that idea and doesn't align with my bigger purpose or bigger goal, immediately I like scrape it. I don't want to play with that. But if plays some sort of role in what I want to achieve, then I start playing with it. But I need a certain amount of time to see if it works or not. And usually it depends on the idea because it can be, you can validate something in just literally a weekend,
Mm,
or you might need a longer period of time depending on the idea. But usually, if it involves, let's say, a new offer that I want to put in the market, I'm immediately asking past clients, but some that I work with recently because they have the information much more fresh in their head and so
mhm,
on. And if it's related to the new thing that I want to push out. And that way I can validate basically just by interviewing them in like 6 to 10 individuals, especially if they work with you, can give you a certain amount of data. If it's a completely fresh idea, that takes a bit longer. And I make sure that allocate enough time, but not all of my time on that. And
yeah,
that way I can go for like 2 to 3 months to validate if my assumptions are right. And if that doesn't play well, after 2 to 3 months, the time I allocate initially, I stop doing it, even if I put some time into. Because otherwise, I'm just playing with it for like 1 2 years. And I did that before and it was complete waste of time. Of course, I learned something, but apart from that, was time waste. So I'm like, I need faster way to validate. So that's kind of how I go about it. But if you want, if you have a specific example that you think of, I can share how I'll go about it.
well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was going after. Is like, because we all have these ideas that are just popping in our head. It's sort of that like, okay, when do I actually do it or not? And I think to your point, it's like there's nothing wrong with hey, let me ask a few people. Let me see, especially if it's related to business, because there's stuff that's outside of business. It's like, do I have the time? Oh, I want to run a marathon. Well, do I have the time to run the marathon? Do I have the time to prepare? Right. So we have these, visions of grandeur in our head. Sometimes the delusions of grandeur. But at the end of the day, if we don't have some sort of execution plan on it, it's almost like better off just not doing it, right? Just put it. What's funny, and I wonder if you deal with this, is like if you put it on the list to be like, let me check about that in a week. It seems like it's on the list for weeks or months. And it's like, well, if it's on there for 2 months and I don't want to do it, then it's probably not worth it, right?
Love it. Yeah.
So that's actually not a bad thing, I think, for folks to maybe, as you think about ideas, like let it marinate for a day or a week and see if it's still coming up over and over and over again. Like I said, this thing with the podcast, it was coming up after interviews and it had come up for like several months of like, God, should I change the format? Should I do it a little different? And that's where I made a huge decision to like put a pause on it this summer, which I'd never done in 7.5 years. So to your point though, if it kept festering, I think that's where ultimately you can make the go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Because if it just sits there for a while and you completely forgot about it, you weren't excited about it in the first place. So
Right.
why just you don't have to do that? And yeah, that's the beauty of it. And what I did, for example, with the podcast at the beginning, I told myself like I love this idea. I see myself doing this. After I was on Instagram Live for 1 hour, I enjoyed the conversation with the host, and I told myself I see myself doing this all the time, but I don't know anything about it. So I allocate myself 2 weeks of learning and then to ask a few individuals if they want to be a guest. And if they will say yes, that was kind of my validating part in order to start it out. And that played well. And I was like, let's start it and see how it goes.
How many episodes have you done so far?
123 pushed out, and I record more than, so I have like a backlog of I think 12 more.
Wow, congrats, dude. That's awesome. I know
Thanks,
how hard it is getting to that point. So
yeah, it is like
I think
you
most
know.
end after like episode 3. So there's an elephant graveyard of three episode, 2 episode, 1 episode podcasts you can find on Spotify. But kudos to you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. Same to you. Like 7 years. Oh my god, like that's amazing, man.
Yeah, a lot of it's
Congrats.
I think just stubbornness of like not not wanting to stop. But I enjoy doing this. Like even just chatting with you, like I just enjoy the conversation. I enjoy the production of it. I don't know. I just still really enjoy it. Probably because I work remote and don't get to talk to a ton of people. So this is my built-in way to talk to new people. So
Exactly. And there are so many things like meeting new people and having interesting conversations, learning a lot. Like the learning part, it's one of my favorites because you meet these smart individuals. And like, for example, when you went on my show and I'm like, oh man, Brian is so smart when it comes to sales, like, and podcasting and so on. I was like, I have a lot to learn from him, and then others and others. And it's like this almost like, you have a free masterclass every single time if you guide the conversation the right way. And I think with this format that you're pushing now, I think it's super smart because these questions that pop up unlock certain insights that people can use immediately. Not just, I don't know, questions that are random or follow-up questions, but those on the moment. And people in the moment can come up sometimes with the best ideas possible without preparing. And I
yeah.
think that's a smart way to change the format.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. I want more spontaneity and fun in my life. So appreciate
This
you
is
being
a good
along for
way.
the ride. All right, so let's spend. I want to spend the rest of the time, this topic, and really some things that you're focused on, from a business standpoint. This topic of helping coaches, because this comes up so much, especially for me being a coach and talking with coaches, is like, all right, kind of like I'll do like a 1 hour session here or there, and kind of these quote unquote, I think you call it like the one-off coaching, and turning that into an actual coaching program or a framework. And I think a lot of folks struggle with this. So I'm kind of curious, maybe to set the tone from your standpoint, is how do you think about maybe that approach of people that are on the, hey, I'm going to do a 1 hour coaching here or there, to building out a program? Like, what's like the maybe the thing they should be considering to start on that bridge over to the other side?
So first of all, the one-off part is needed at the beginning because you learn a lot. So you have these one-off sessions in which you learn about your audience. So I won't say to people to not do them at all, especially at the beginning. But as you go, you'll notice that it's not scalable. You cannot do much with it.
Mhm.
And once you have that information from them after a lot of coaching calls or consulting calls and so on, you are able to see patterns and you are able to narrow down who's actually your audience. And the main reason why people don't are not able to build successful coaching programs or amazing consulting frameworks and so on is because they don't truly know their audience. And the reality is that it's the unsexy part of marketing, since you need to really look at data, you need to identify patterns in the conversation that you have, you need to do a lot of research, and luckily now AI can help you a lot with that. But still, I won't rely only on AI because the insights that you get from a real life conversation, and if you can have them even face to face, because you'll see more of the body language, you'll see more of the, I don't know, the pauses in the conversation are different and such, and you can have better follow-up questions in order to unlock more insights. And what those insights give you is the data that you can put together to see how you can truly help someone. Because most people focus when it comes to narrow down towards an audience to certain demographics, to certain titles, and so on. Personally, I love to focus on the results that you bring on the table. So if you niche down based on result, you can serve multiple industries that are the main challenge is the same,
Hmm.
and they want to get to the same endpoint, if that makes sense. So they have this block between the current state and the future state they want to go to, and through your offer, basically the results that you provide, you help them overcome that. And for example, in my case, is like people always chase new clients instead of helping them. They are always greening, trapped in the execution in acquisition, instead of spending time helping clients more. And if you switch that mindset and you start focusing more on retaining clients rather than just changing them all the time, you'll see that you'll find solution how to help them for the long haul rather than just, oh, let's have a set of, I don't know, six sessions of 1 hour coaching calls or consulting calls, and that's it. After that, you're good to go. But in reality, people need help for long term. And you can do that if you identify exactly who they are. Because after that comes the productization part, after that comes the offer, assets, and actually focusing on the marketing channels afterwards. But you need, unfortunately, I would say, to start there, understand your customers, because unfortunately, because people simply don't want to do that, and there are rare those that are doing it, and those are succeeding because it's so much easier to help someone when you truly understand them.
And when you say results, we're talking about really whether it's a data metric piece or it's like a transformation, right? It's kind of like where's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Like that's really what you're helping people get to. To your point, it doesn't have to be like a specific title because it could span like I guess if I use a real world example, like with the sales coaching, right? It's like I could help a founder that started a tech company. I also I have a client that does learning and development, and more consultancy. But they're all trying to go to the same goal. It's like they're trying not to run out of money, right? They're trying to grow their business, create revenue. Obviously, there's a lot of different things, right? Be more confident on sales calls, et cetera, right? We can go down the list. But some people a transformation is like going from being the founder to hiring their first sales rep, right? So that's a transformation for some. But to your point, just to make sure I'm clear, like you're saying that's more important than saying, oh, I only work with tech founders, because the reality is I could work with other founders because they have similar problems. Is that what you're getting at?
Exactly. And in the same time, you want to be careful because there is a trap there. So if you say, like, all right, these are the kind of people I want to help, but then another comes and kind of have the similar problem, but then you realize that, oh, wait, that person needs a total different path. And here's basically when it comes in those initial conversation that you have with your customers, because once you identify the patterns and once you help a few, you realize that, wait a second, I'm actually following the same process all the time. These are the steps that I'm following them through. And of course, those steps are flexible, and some might even enter at a different stage in the conversation. And when you identify those steps, you're basically building that coaching program or that framework that is reusable, and you don't start from scratch every single time. And you're able to implement certain pillars there and use technology to help you with things that are repetitive and so on. You can hire some because now you have a process in place and they can follow the process and so on. And that's how basically how big consulting firms work. They have a certain steps they follow, and of course they keep things flexible. They still have the human touch there rather than just automating everything. But when you have these frameworks that are flexible, you are able to help more people in the same time, and in the same time you can basically have predictability in results, since you know that if you help certain individuals go from A to B and achieve the same or similar results, then it's much more likely to help others doing the same. And yeah, that's basically the tricky part, because you need to look for patterns. You need to look for patterns, and you need to look as well at your way of working. Like, because if you, for example, change, let's say, the type of client every single time because they need a kind of different result, then the path change, and there are different steps, there are different I don't know, tech stack that you need to use or different approaches and so on, and you kind of derail. So that's how you look about, like, who are those individuals that I am able to help. And you mentioned there's something like I'm going back a bit, a certain result or a certain
Transformation.
transformation.
Yeah.
But also, you need to look at the progress, because the reality is that not every single person will arrive at the destination either, neither in the same time or have the same kind of results. But if you manage to help them make progress, that's been seen as a result, both from your
Right.
side and from their side, because they got better, they improved something. Either if it's a personal thing, if you're a personal coach or a life coach and so on, or it's something that, for example, in sales, if they have this big realization or this huge mindset shift and they are able to just increase their, I don't know, closing rate by 10%, that's huge already. So I'll look for those things, like the commonalities between what you're doing and who you serve.
When you, well, I'm going to put a pin in that for a second. I want to come back, but because there's probably someone listening in that's saying, okay, well, I don't have any these calls yet. I'm trying to get there. Should they like just do free consultation if they can't get people to pay? Should they do a lower cost? Like, what are your thoughts on like just getting started with like initial coaching to have those 5 or 10 or 15 conversation to like build that up? How do you think about that?
So you can do that, and it can be something very transparent. So you don't go there like, um, like, I have this experience. I am coaching for I don't know how many years, and but I just want to offer free help. That doesn't work. Like, you're open. Yeah, look, tell them, listen, I'm starting with this, and I really want to, like, have a no string attached conversation in which I need some information from you, and in exchange, you'll probably get out of it something. And you need to offer something. Probably your coaching advice won't be the best, but the trick is that most of us, when you start either coaching or consulting, you have certain experience in the field, because that's why you're starting in the first place, right? So you leverage that, you add that into discussion. Like, for example, I don't know, you work for a startup for a certain amount of time, you learn a lot of things about, let's say, in your case, sales. And after that, when you start coaching in sales, you obviously have the experience because you've been in the trenches and so on. And you bring that to the table, and you'll immediately see, oh, I'm actually, just in exchange for information, I can have some powerful insights, uh, from them, and here we go. Like you kind of have that call, and you need to have this in the beginning. Unfortunately, some people charge straight away and charge a lower amount in order to make sure that they are able to get some conversations. But if you truly want to move fast, have this, like, don't think about it, oh, I'm not paid for it, because you're paid with data, and data
Yeah.
can make wonders.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're getting, and to your point earlier, it saves you a ton of headaches of like trying to, like if you're saying, oh, I'm going to charge insert whatever, I'm charge $100 an hour. Okay, great. If you get one or two of those a month and people are paying you, you're better off doing 20 free ones because you're going to learn so much in those 20 over a couple week or month period to
Exactly.
help you charge maybe more, or again to set up the coaching programs, right? It kind of accelerates things because you have that data to back you.
Yeah, exactly. And you can always compare the data that you get with what you can research online. And there might be some parallels there and such, but these conversations are the easiest way to understand your audience and to validate. And I can give you an example. Like, I had someone in the podcast that had a friend, a billionaire friend, who just wanted to start something new, had all the money in the world to hire someone, but he sit for hundreds of calls, free calls, to understand if his idea and the audience that he's targeting is the right one. And only after that started the new business. So a, a billionaire that had the money to pay someone to have the calls, or could pay others to like be in the calls, was like, let's just have these hundreds of conversations to see where it goes. And yeah, it takes time, but and if you don't have that luxury in order to like have a runway or a safety net, you can still get in 2 weeks. Like, if you approach someone online, and they need to have the time, but still you can book at least 5, 10 calls in a week.
Yeah. Well, and again, you're building up that muscle, if you will, of okay, what do they want? What and I think it's not only what they want, it's what you want. Do I actually want to coach these type of people? You know, I think that's something that a lot of us don't have. I know for me, it was a while because I've kind of changed course a little bit. And it was only when I really said, Brian, who do you actually love working with? And I think when you really come up with the answer to that, it actually weeds out potentially some people because just because they might pay you doesn't mean you want to take their money, right? You know, you don't have to take it. At least
Exactly.
that's, I don't know if you agree with that mentality, but that's kind of, I think part of it is like, once you get the data and insight, now you have to decide, is that actually what you want to keep doing?
Exactly. And that validation at the beginning pays dividends long term, because you don't stay there and have those paid conversations for a couple of months to realize that I don't enjoy it at all. This is not fulfilling what I'm doing here, and so on. And most people go that route for some money to like still to not feel they are doing free work.
Mm.
And I think free work has a bad reputation, but can teach you a lot, because those who don't pay, they don't pay attention. But you pay attention because they are there for the information. And if you pay attention, you can do wonders. And I can give you like a insight from a certain thing that I do. So, for example, how I get data as well, I offer to my podcast guests a business breakthrough session. No
Okay.
string attached, no sales call afterwards, nothing like that. Just a pure gift in order to, because they pay with their time to be there, they offer insights and so on, to give back. And yeah, from the get go, I get a lot of insights. I not only practice my consulting methods and coaching, but as well I get insights from them. And that's how you learn. Like, you see what people are struggling with and so on. And you don't need to have a podcast, but if you have a podcast, that's a good way to give back, and in the same time to get something in return that it's like a win-win for everyone. So there are many ways to do it. You need to be a bit creative to find ways to have those conversations.
Well, on the back end too, as I'm thinking about it now, you're not just having that initial conversation, but it does two things. One is it builds your confidence in the process that you're building, right? Because the more times you hear the same thing, you're like, okay, I might be onto something. But then two, those people potentially become references, right? Maybe they give you referrals, they give you a testimonial. Like, there's no reason just because you did a free session, someone can't give you a testimonial. And I think a lot of people forget that. I know I did early on, was like, oh, let's ask these people because they probably have a network of people that are similar. Great. Why can't I get my next clients from them? And that's how generally people get their first clients. It's
Exactly.
from people they know, you know?
Exactly, because imagine you just help someone, and when they will think about the problem that you help them solve, who they will think about than you if you help them solve that problem. So, and people will say like, oh, you cannot help someone in just 1 hour, 45 minutes, or 30 minutes, or whatever. But you'll be amazed, like, because again, if there is progress, there is help and there is result. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I help them make 6 figures in 1 hour. That's not possible. But if you help them go from I have no idea how to overcome this challenge to an actual clear plan to overcome that, even that didn't happen in that hour, but they have the plan to do it,
Mm-hmm.
it's already a win for those.
Is there any data to support like how long coaching sessions should be, as well as how long coaching programs should be? And I'm asking specifically, this is a little self-serving, but just because again, I deal with this, is like, at some point, if you work with someone month over month, whatever, a year goes by, they learn a ton, they've accelerated a lot. And now, people have other stuff going on, their priorities. They might have to like, oh, I got to focus on something other than you've just shared a ton with me. I've learned a ton. Great. But I can't keep going versus the like, hey, do I do a 30-day or 90-day sprint with someone and then, get them to a lesser program or, let them out of the nest kind of thing. Like, it's something I've thought about a lot is like, how do you structure the proper coaching program? Or is there even a proper program? Is it different for every industry and every person?
Yeah, so it might be different for everyone. For example, let's take it the calls themselves. So what I love to do is to set a goal for the call. If the goal is achieved in like 10 minutes, that's it. Like I'm not saying to my clients like, the goal is achieved, we can close the call now. But sometimes that happen. Like they say to me, oh, that's what we came here for. I will go to implement that, and they go to implement and they do it. Sometimes it takes longer than you expected to achieve the goal of the call. And that's why it's so easy to approximate this by setting goals for every single thing. Like, for example, if your coaching program or if your consulting frameworks achieve the goal in a certain amount of time, and if you do it enough, you realize that, oh, in average, it's taking this long or that long. And then you know that in the future how to even sell it, because you tell them, like, in certain amount of, I don't know, weeks, months, you'll achieve this goal. In the same time, what I love to do, I'm a generalist. So I become a generalist with time. I have a tech background and I work in sales, and then I go back to tech and marketing and so on. So what I do, I learn certain things along the way. I hire people, I got coaching mentors and so on. And I end up being I started as a consultant, but slowly, I do a lot of coaching as well because it's needed. And I usually start with an engagement of 3 months. And
Mhm.
after those 3 months, I enter in a fractional role for my clients, a fractional CMO or CTO, depending on their needs. And that continuous advisory role can go for like 9, 12 months, sometimes even longer. And along the way, they identify they need help with certain other things. And if I have a framework for that, if I learn something from others from that, I see if I can help them apply. I immediately state to them, like, as you know, this is not my expertise, but we can try to see if it works. And if they have a breakthrough moment, or if I can point them to others that are better than me at that, I do that. So my opinion is that you need to be flexible and in this age that we're living in, which the reality is that AI will take a lot of jobs, even that it's the most used hook online, but that's
Mhm.
kind of the reality. You need to be a generalist, in my opinion. in which you try to learn certain things, not just from, I don't know, online courses and so on, but from real people, to hire others to teach you certain things and certain skills. And after that, you'll see that you'll be way well positioned to learn and to be with someone for a long haul. And that's one way to do it. The other is to, if you have a certain skill or a certain problem that you solve, you realize that, as I mentioned, from those patterns, that it's taking a certain amount of time, and you can build that in a repeated way, and you say, oh, actually, I can help my clients for 9 months at a time. Then I know that I can help 10 clients for 9 months. So at any given moment, when you approach those usually average churn rates for 9 months, I need to replace this client and that client because they will churn, I won't be able to help them anymore, and so on. And that's how I go about it, because indeed it's different for everyone. But
Right.
if you have this flexible approach, you can come up with a specific timeline.
So if I'm understanding then, the biggest thing is that the time necessarily doesn't matter because it's going to vary. But if you know specifically, all right, this is the framework I have, or this is a program I have, and the average client takes X amount of time to go through it. And again, that's a learning process. It's just the reality that not that they won't stay with you after the fact, because again, to your point, maybe they need help in other areas, but you can make the assumption that, hey, once they've kind of gone past that expiration date, we can't be assured that they're going to stay with you for another 6 months or a year or whatever it is. You kind of
Exactly.
have to always be, assuming that, hey, I have to bring in new clients and I have to build it because I know that program is so long. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah,
I'm understanding?
exactly. You understand it super well, and that way you have predictability, because you know exactly when they usually churn. Of course, it's not like fixed. Sometimes they stay longer, sometimes they achieve their goal faster, but at least you have some sort of predictability, and you'll understand that. All right, so this is the moment that I need to like replace them or to find someone else to fill that gap. And it's much more easier to run a business like that, because you go from the place of like chasing clients all the time to a place where you just need to replace clients here and there. And in you should have a waiting list. Like you should build that waiting list way ahead, and they'll know like, I'll be able to take you on in like 2 or 3 months from now or 6 months from now. And if you are good at what you do, you can build that waiting list, because there is more uh, demand than the supply, and is that supply demand tension, and it's much more easier to sell after that.
All right, so I'm kind of, and again, I wish we could talk for 10 hours on this, but based on our time today, so you want more results driven transformation versus, a specific niche down approach. We want to be able to get on calls as quickly as possible to learn about that and then find the patterns,
Exactly.
right? And then we want to build some sort of program around those patterns, those results, and then just kind of understand in a framework, I guess we can call this similar wording, but basically something that's structured that might span multiple industries so that we can get people to that result in a certain given time and that we know that for our business. That they've achieved that goal. Am I on point kind of with what am I missing?
Yeah, you're very on point. And just I want to address something there, because often people think that when you call programs, they're like just online courses and stuff like that. But in this case, if you can imagine, it's a step-by-step process. It's a
Mhm.
repeatable thing. That's what you need to build once you see those patterns, because when you have a repeatable thing, you're able to adjust, but in the same time have predictability in your efforts as well, in your resources, in the results, as I mentioned. So that you need to look out for, like how you can break the way you provide results into repeatable process. And it can be like 3 steps, it can be 6, 9, but usually it's multiple the 3 that works well when it comes to also people to be able to go through it. And you need to see how much of your effort needs there, how much you can automate, how much you can let your client do, and the other way around. So yeah, but that's kind of it. And after that, you can build an offer, because you have the product. Basically, that's the product, and then you can build an offer around it, marketing assets, which people love. They start with the marketing assets, but
Right. But they should start, yeah, that should be
yeah,
last, right? Yeah. Um, Well, that's a good framework for them. What would be, so let's maybe as we wrap up the conversation, what's an action item? So someone listening in, they do some coaching, they want to build more structured programs. What's like do this today or this week? Like what's an action item you would give them to get started?
So if you're already doing some coaching, you definitely have some data. Look at your past conversation, and if you're allowed, take the transcript, put into any AI tool and try to look for patterns to do it faster. But if you do it manually, even better. So that will be my action point. Look at the data that you already have. If you don't, get into those calls, ask for permission to record, use the transcript, find those patterns, and make sure that you look for those things, because those are basically the that's the foundation of building any single successful product, offer, and so on.
Yeah. Gabe, I 100% agree. I mean, if you're not recording every single one of your calls, you are literally doing yourself a disservice. And I again, I take this from a sales approach, like to be able to look at your sales calls and to, kind of look at patterns on why you're closing certain business, why not, even that alone. But to your point of like just building out your business, hearing the pain points here, maybe it's even a quote of like someone did something well. There's so many things you can pull out of it. And most people are familiar with having like a recording bot or something like that. In, I use Fathom. I don't know what you use, but a lot of people are used to having those things inside of a recording. Most people aren't going to tell you not to record.
Yeah, exactly. And either way, like I still advise them to like ask for permission, especially if their clients or people that are talking to are from Europe, because here like GDPR and other rules are
Sure,
stopping progress, let's say.
that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, I mean, even ask in recording, and if they say no, then great, you don't have to. But most people probably would be like, yeah, sure, no big deal.
Yeah, and
So
anyway, even if they say no, you have a pen and paper, and you will take more time to take notes, and it'll take probably the calls longer. And it's in all people benefit to record the call, because you can send a nice, I don't know, action plan after that if you record it, and the notes themselves and so on. And they'll be valuable for them as well. So everyone
yeah,
wins.
yeah. All right, that's your action step, everyone. Get out there and start recording your calls and start analyzing. Gabe, man, this is a lot of fun. Thank you for coming on here. New season, new format, and that's a good conversation. Where can people say hello to you? Where you're spending time on LinkedIn? I'm assuming still.
Yeah, not so much as before. But first of all, thank you so much, Brian, for having me. It was an honor and a pleasure to catch up with you. And yes, I still spend some time on LinkedIn, not as I used to, but as well, they can check the podcast, Authority in the Wild podcast. And as well, if you want to stay up to date with what I'm working on, my personal website, gabemaruska.com, it's the best place to stay up to date with what I do.
Awesome, Gabe. Thank you so much, man. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Brian. Right back at you.